On February 26, George Zimmerman shot Trayvon Martin. And since then, you know, we've gotten a couple sides of the story here. But now through a series, I should say, of both coordinated leaks and media appearances, George Zimmerman's defense has begun in earnest in the media. So, first of all, apparently some of the police are talking to the Orlando Sentinel, and here are some of the things that they have said. They said that Zimmerman was apparently headed to a grocery store when he saw Trayvon Martin looking suspicious. Already this story sucks because he apparently kept seeing black guys looking suspicious 49 times in that same year. He then called 911. Then Martin apparently tried to approach Zimmerman, which is another fascinating part of the story, because in the 911 tapes we see that we hear Zimmerman saying that he's approaching Martin. And then, again, according to the police, Trayvon Martin punched and attacked Zimmerman, they claim. Now, of course, these are the same cops that decided to do a toxicology test on the victim rather than the suspect. It's the same cops that decided to do a background check on the victim rather than the suspect. And now they, of course, have the courage to do leaks to the Orlando Sentinel and not come out in front and tell us. And when the story continues, they say, well, who yelled for help? Well, again, they claim that it was Zimmerman, the guy who had the gun. And then, of course, after that, Zimmerman did kill Martin. That one they can't cover up because Trayvon Martin's actually dead. And then they say that when they arrived on the scene, Zimmerman had a bloody nose and head lacerations. That's theoretically from Trayvon Martin, who weighs 140 pounds, getting the better of him and apparently punching him in the nose and smashing his head into the pavement. That's what they claim. But then you read in the Orlando Sentinel two other things that make you question. First of all, they said, the paper did, police have been reluctant to provide details about all their evidence, but this is what they disclosed to the Sentinel. So, apparently not many details, but, oh, believe us, trust us, this is the real story. No, I don't really trust you. And by the way, also in that same story, the police revealed that the paramedics came to the scene, checked on Zimmerman, they treated him a little bit there, and decided that his injuries were not serious enough to go to the hospital, that he could go home. Now, I know that if you've got even a tiny bit of injury, in order to be safe, they always send you to the hospital. So apparently his injuries were so life-threatening he had to shoot the guy, but it's not life-threatening enough that they would bother sending you to the hospital. Fascinating how that happens. So now, the friends of... Oh, one other thing about the witnesses. Here's the problem. There's a lot of them on tape saying that, no, it was not Zimmerman yelling for help. It was Trayvon. Let's listen to one of them here. This is Mary Kusher.
The only thing I saw that night, I heard the crying. We were in the kitchen. I heard the crying. It was a little boy. As soon as the gun went off, the crying stopped. Therefore, it tells me it was not Zimmerman crying.
Yeah, that's a little bit of a problem for the secret leaks that the police are giving to the Orlando Sentinel. It doesn't really jive with a lot of the facts. So now, Joe Oliver is a friend of George Zimmerman and has decided that he's going to be all over TV defending him in the most comical and ridiculous ways imaginable. Let's listen to the first defense.
This is a horrible, horrible happening where someone who thought he was doing the right thing has virtually lost his life now.
And what would he say to Trayvon Martin's family?
That he's very, very sorry. That he's very, very sorry. Because in many ways, George has lost his life, too.
Yeah, here's the problem with that. He didn't lose his life. Trayvon Martin lost his life. And by the way, if he was that sorry, why doesn't he call the parents and tell them? Oh, no, you're going to send one of your friends on TV, who, by the way, happens to be black, I'm sure a wonderful coincidence for you, to go on there and tell his parents through TV that he might be sorry. Well, okay, that's really reassuring. Let's go to ridiculous excuse number 2.
What entrance is that he's heading towards?
The back entrance.
Are you following him?
Yeah.
Okay, we don't need you to do that.
On the tapes, on the 911 tapes, there's a moment where many people swear they hear him uttering a racial epithet. Does that make any sense to you? Does that compute to you at all?
No, not at all. And in fact, I spoke with my teenage daughter yesterday, and the word in question, I mean, it's the difference between a C and a G, from what I understand. And goon is apparently a term of endearment in the high schools these days. I don't know of anyone younger than 40 who uses coon as a racial epithet.
Oh, I see a term of endearment. As he's chasing him with a gun, and he says, these guys always get away, use the F word, and then use the term of endearment for the guy he's about to kill. That's a very plausible story. I'm really glad we got that side. All right, now, another defense happened right here on the Young Turks on Friday night. Larry Pratt, the guy who runs Gun Owners of America, came on and said that Trayvon Martin was the aggressor. Let's listen.
He should have run away. He should have run away because he had his stalker on the ground.
Wait, why shouldn't Zimmerman have run away? The cops told him, don't go there. He's the one with the gun. Why shouldn't he have run away?
That.
So you think Zimmerman should stand his ground, and that's your big law, stand your ground. He should stand his ground, but when Trayvon Martin gets stalked with a gun, he shouldn't run away. Or he should run away.
Once Martin had neutralized the threat, Zimmerman was on the ground. That's when he should have just taken off to get out of there. That's not what he did, and he doubled down.
Oh, that's fascinating. So if you don't have a gun, you are not allowed to stand your ground. You must retreat. But if you do have a gun, then you can stand your ground. You don't have to retreat at all. Just shoot away. That's a fascinating concept. Well, let's bring in a defense attorney. She's represented Phil Spector and Casey Anthony. She's part of their defense teams, so she would know about defense. This is Linda Kenny Bodden, and she's live from New York City. Linda, how's that for a defense? The guy with the gun must run away. Without the gun must run away, but the guy with the gun can go around stalking people and shooting them.
Cenk, it's not common sense. It's just nonsense. It's ridiculous. You know, picture this, and I thought about this today. Let's assume I'm walking through that complex, and I see some big guy. You know, he may not be taller than I, but he's a big guy. He's kind of skulking around looking at me. So I put my little hood up to protect myself. Maybe he won't notice me. And then all of a sudden, this big guy is there, and I see a gun. Well, I hope Trayvon, before he got killed, clocked this guy and broke his nose. I hope he took him to the ground, because this law was to prevent Trayvon from getting killed. This law was to prevent Trayvon from getting charged if Trayvon had killed this guy with his own gun, with the other guy's gun. It wasn't to protect Zimmerman. It's ridiculous. We are in Alice in Wonderland in Florida. It's ridiculous.
Linda, it seems that there's no way that Trayvon can win. Because if he runs away, he looks like he's guilty and running away from some sort of, alleged crime that Zimmerman's got in his head. And in fact, Zimmerman's chasing him down anyway. And you hear on the tape, or you heard from the witness who was on the phone with him, that Trayvon was scared and his girlfriend's telling him, run, run. So if he runs away, he's in trouble. If he fights back, well, then he should be shot. So what the hell is he supposed to do? So does that mean that anybody with a gun in Florida is always right under all factual circumstances?
Well, I guess it means that Trayvon wasn't supposed to be born black. That's what it means. Because let's face it, if he were a white kid walking through this neighborhood, that simply would not have happened. Now, there may be something wrong in Zimmerman's head. Maybe he perceives people for some reason as skulking around. But that doesn't mean you take a gun out and you kill them. It's so ridiculous. You look at the police report, and this happened on Retreat View Circle. The person who should have retreated from life, I think, was George Zimmerman, because it's Trayvon who is dead.
All right, Linda Kenny Bodden, very clear as always. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Cenk.
All right, now I want to bring in Professor Tricia Rose here, because here's another part of this that I want to talk about. It's the reaction of the family and this so-called new piece of evidence that they are introducing, which is the idea that, oh my God, Trayvon Martin was suspended because there were traces of marijuana in a bag that was in a school bag. Well, actually, here are some quotes from the family. Even in death, they are still disrespecting my son. They've killed my son, and now they're trying to kill his reputation. That is from the parents of Trayvon Martin. Professor Rose, great to have you here. It looks like it's character assassination that the defense usually does in rape cases, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. Very, very similar, yes. I mean, but this is really part of a larger criminalization project. Young black men in particular, but frankly, all poor black people have been segregated and criminalized as a class of people. And so all of that's being invoked here. The idea, of course, as you so rightly pointed out, if he runs, he's a criminal running. If he stays put and stands his ground, he doesn't have the right to self-defense in the same way that Zimmerman's trying to invoke. And so he's trapped. And it's a trap that was set long before he was walking through this gated community, which is gated for racial and class reasons. These kinds of communities were intentionally designed to keep people out. And so all of this is what's going on at once, and we can't see this just as a one-time case. This is part of a much larger system.
And by the way, you finally make it inside the gated community, and they shoot you anyway.
Right, to visit someone who you're not supposed to know because they're inside the gated community.
Right, and that happens to be your dad in this case. So now one more thing with you, Professor Rose. I know you're going to come back later in the show, but I want to give you the politicians' reactions here, because President Obama had a touching statement on this.
Yeah.
The Republicans were not touched by it. Let's watch that first.
Is to the parents of Trayvon Martin. You know, if I had a son, he'd look like Trayvon.
Is the president suggesting that if it had been a white who'd been shot, that would be okay because it wouldn't look like him?
What the president of the United States should do is try to bring people together, not use these types of horrible and tragic individual cases to try to drive a wedge in America.
Reaction.
Well, you know, I mean, I'm so disappointed that any vague reference to systemic racial inequality gets an insane response. I mean, how much denial can we live in? That's really the question. So when you look at all of these people protesting around the country, it's not because a black child was killed or a young man was killed by one man. It's about an entire criminal injustice system that puts black people in jail for longer sentences, that polices all of the things, longer sentences, polices them, puts them in jeopardy, mistreats them, profiles them, and that this is sort of enough is enough. The president can't even say he would look like him, and we get hysterical.
You're right. He didn't even make it political. He just said he would look like me. He didn't say anything else.
So he might as well go all the way. It seems to me if you can't say anything without trouble, say what you have to say anyway.
Well,
and
I would have much
this
preferred that.
Definitely. I mean, but I understand the trap he's in. I mean, that's the idea that somehow this is divisive, not a whole culture and ideology of criminalizing black people fundamentally so that he always looks suspicious. Trayvon looks suspicious with a hoodie or not. That's the point. We've created this fiction. The terror and fear that young black men walk around in really needs to get some airtime. That is a constant threat of being under siege that should be our focus here.
All right. Professor Tricia Rose, you'll be back, I know, a little bit later in the show. And when we come back, well, the Republicans try to scare us to death about Obamacare. Well, now the president's fighting back, and we'll tell you what the results were. But remember these good old days?
What it's going to do to our seniors is I have a message for you. You're going to die sooner.